Sasha James, the Director of Contemporary Studies of the Chautauqua School of Dance, a new position for the 2017 season. We will talk more about that, much more about that in a moment. Sasha is also heading to Indiana University in the fall as a visiting lecturer at the Jacobs School of Dance, also a new position. Lots of changes for you coming up. But let's begin by getting you from Australia, where you were born, to Chautauqua. You can just fast forward through that.
Yeah, I'll do the abbreviated version, otherwise we'll use the whole interview. Yeah, I grew up in Australia. I trained at the Australian Ballet School, and upon graduating I was fortunate enough to tour America with the Australian Ballet. So we performed in Washington and in New York City, and then from there I was offered a position at Hong Kong Ballet. So I went to Hong Kong for 3 years and lived there, and I used to come back to New York in the summers to train and do class. Just because I thought the training was so good and you never knew who was going to walk into the studio. I remember taking class and Baryshnikov would be in the same class as I was. So it was always something very exciting about going back to New York. And I thought, well, if I can do this on the summers, why don't I just move here and do this all the time? So I did that, and fortunately I was very naive when I did that and didn't realise how difficult it would be to actually survive and live in New York without any sort of visa other than a tourist visa. And on a tourist visa you can't legally work and make money anywhere. So the thing with visas is you can't get a job without the visa, and you can't get a visa without the job. It's this wonderful catch-22 that you run into. So I got this green card, and I'd heard about this place called Chautauqua, and I thought, that just sounds amazing. And I knew dancers had gone there and said it was just such an amazing experience. And this was back earlier when there was a company here called the Chautauqua Festival Ballet, and it was a summer pickup company, so you'd have dancers from ABT, New York City Ballet, as far as west as Pacific Northwest Ballet, Pennsylvania Ballet, Atlanta Ballet, and they would all come together, 14 dancers for 7 weeks, and put on these performances. And I said, I want to be a part of that, because traditionally in America, dancers are unemployed during the summer. So it was such a great opportunity to work during the summer in this magnificent environment with the likes of Jean-Pierre and Patricia McBride. Violette was here when I first came. So as soon as I got my green card, I was working for Kathy Moriarty Diamond, who's married to Mark Diamond, who's been here for a very long time teaching. And I said, I'm really interested in going, and they made that happen. So it was really Mark Diamond and Kathy that got me to come here that first time. And once I was here, it was just love at first sight. And I'll tell you, one of my first experiences here as a dancer was, I was in a studio, and Jean-Pierre had asked me to do Tchaikovsky pas de deux, which is an incredibly hard pas de deux that Balanchine created. And I think we only had about 4 or 5 days warning that we were going to do this performance, and just from a stamina point of view, it's very, very difficult. But I remember my first rehearsal, and I was in the studio with Jean-Pierre, Patricia McBride, and Violette Verdi. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven, so I was hooked. I knew I had to keep coming back. In 2001 was the first year that the Chautauqua Festival Ballet, this pickup company, reduced its weeks to about 3.5, 4 weeks. And then Jean-Pierre, as artistic director of then North Carolina Dance Theatre and now Charlotte Ballet, wanted to bring his own company here for the second 4 weeks and do a residency. So that's when that switch started to happen. So I thought, well, I'm probably only going to be able to do the 4 weeks instead of the 7 weeks or 8 weeks that everyone had talked about. Fortunately, he was creating a new Cinderella at the time, and he needed more dancers, and he asked if I would stay on. So I thought, oh, this is fantastic. So his company came up from Charlotte for the second 4 weeks, or the next half of the season, and I worked with the company. Then I went back to the company I was working for in Dayton, and then the following summer I came up for that first 4 weeks again. Well, it just happened to be that the next time that his company was coming up, they needed a male dancer again. And I thought, well, this is perfect, because I think they were doing 4 temperaments, and they were doing a couple of other pieces. But I was fortunate enough to stay on again for that second 4 weeks, and he said, well, you should come down to Charlotte and just, hang out and see what it's like. So I went down to Charlotte and saw what that was like. And in that year, my future wife had already joined the company because we'd both been coming here together because we both danced together in Dayton. So she'd already joined North Carolina Dance Theatre. And I thought, well, I have to go down there. You know, so I chased her down there in 2000. She went 2002 and I went down there in 2003. And I've been there. I was there as a dancer ever since. Well, I don't dance there anymore. But I think the program is unique in that it provides these young children with an opportunity to get on stage, which is in front of a large audience, often with a symphony, which is pretty unheard of for a summer program, a summer dance program. So I think in that regard, it's unique in the country. I mean, I think it's probably one of the only places in the country where you can get to dance with a symphony orchestra in a house that seats, I don't know what the amp holds, I think it's probably 4,000 to 5,000 people. It's a big venue. So to have that opportunity to come here and get those butterflies out and be on stage is a tremendous growth experience for these dancers. The other thing they do is they get to perform with the company and get on stage with professionals and be surrounded by professionals. So again, it's unique in regard to that. Jean-Pierre has always had a very forward-looking attitude with regard to dance, and you can tell that by his history. I mean, he was an étoile in Paris Opera when he was 21. He was doing all the classics, he was doing everything, but it wasn't enough. He went to New York City Ballet because he wanted to grow and learn more contemporary style of dancing, and that's what he instills in the school here, is to provide that contemporary syllabus for the kids, so when they go out, because they have to be prepared for that now when they go and join these professional companies. Everyone is doing everything, so you have to be very versatile. So he's been very forward thinking about pushing that and making sure these young dancers are really prepared and trained well. The other thing I think about the program is I don't think of it as a summer dance program. I think of it as a cultural immersion program, and I think that's the way it could really and should be promoted, because these kids, I just spoke to a couple of the kids just now, and I said, well, you're going to go see the opera? You're going to go see Ailey tonight? You're going to go see Alvin Ailey? And I said, there's a wonderful play on at the moment. You should go and see that. And it's an opportunity, and they can ride their bikes around and do all this sort of stuff completely safe and just immerse themselves in culture, not necessarily just ballet, but all these other things that Chautauqua offers. So I think it's the only program of its kind in the country, I mean, without question. So.
And your role in that change and that development, how has that happened?
Yeah, for the last several years, Jean-Pierre's wanted me to coach these dancers in contemporary syllabus. And what that really means is I'll go into a studio with these dancers and just start making up choreography and giving them the opportunity to work with the choreographer one-on-one, which is a very important skill set that they need to learn when they join a company. Because in this day of, everything has to be produced really, really quickly. That's the economics of the arts, actually, unfortunately. We don't have a long time to gestate some of these pieces. So they have to learn how to pick up steps really quickly. So I'm in there to teach them a contemporary vocabulary, which will be very important for them, but also to work with someone and find out what their part of this collaboration with the dancer and choreographer is all about, and how they can actually be part of the process. So I think it's vital that they learn that, and if the younger age they can learn that from, the better.
What ages are you working with?
All of them.
Even a little.
The workshop guys, I did a little piece for them last year, and admittedly some of the movement was probably beyond them, but they, I think they had a really valuable experience learning this sort of movement. So yeah, last year Charlotte Ballet did 5 different performances in 7.5 weeks. Well, we do 5 different shows in Charlotte in about 32 weeks. So it's a lot. Admittedly, some of those ballets are ballets we may have done in Charlotte, but a lot of the times you've got Mark Diamond in there just cranking out a ballet in 5 days, or I'll do the same and try and produce a new piece or a new work. But just to get all this repertoire up and running is really, really very taxing. And it's hard work. It's hard on the dancers, physically, mentally, emotionally, because they're not at home, they're not in their own bed at night. So it is a quick turnaround. This time we'll be doing three different performances in about 3 weeks. So I think it's slightly more compressed. So it is, it's very challenging. And that's just the professional company. So that doesn't include the student programs and MSFO and those sorts of things as well. So it keeps me awake at night. I don't take, everyone says, oh, but that's like going on vacation to Chautauqua, isn't it? I'm like, no, I don't get a day off. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it happens to be in a beautiful, picturesque setting. So that's the difference. Yeah, it's pretty stressful to get all that stuff on, but it's work that I love, right? It's my passion. So at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like work per se, but it's a lot. Yeah, look, I've been coming to Chautauqua for 17 years. First as a dancer, and then as a choreographer. And you will not find a warmer audience anywhere, I don't think. So they've always been tremendously supportive of everything I've done, both personally and professionally. And I also say personally in a different way, because I'm married. My wife, Rebecca Janes, who was a dancer here as well, we performed on that stage a lot together. We now have our 3 children here. And the kids couldn't be more excited every summer to get ready to come to Chautauqua. And the support and the love they get from people that they're not really familiar with but have been supporters of Rebecca and I is thrilling for us, you know. And to have the kids grow up in this environment, it's kind of a unique place, right, in this time and day and this age of what the world's going through, to have a place like this where your kids can get on their bike and go for a ride and you don't have to worry about it. Well, I worry about it. I got twin boys who are knuckleheads, but aside from that, it's fantastic. So hopefully, we can keep doing this for a long time. Yes, of course. So there's been some iconic people that have really changed the face of ballet, and I think you have to go back to George Balanchine as being one of the first to really take that ballet technique and then bend it and change it into a way that was really not so predictable, I think. And I think we have modern dance, which is another form of and that line between modern and contemporary often gets blurred these days. But I think you have those masters like Martha Graham and Merce Cunningham, and who produce this whole contemporary ballet, modern ballet technique. And then you have these masters like George Balanchine that came along that still did ballet in a sense that the women were in point shoes, but they were taken off their leg, off balance. Not necessarily, they weren't always on balance, and they were using the classical technique or vernacular in a way to make the shapes really interesting and move in space in a really whole new dynamic that hadn't been seen before. And I think that's where ballet is progressing. I mean, what these kids are expected to do these days is truly unbelievable.
The physicality.
The physicality, yeah. But they also have the benefit of science, right? Of all these new cross-training methods. So they're getting their bodies completely prepared for this. Whereas when I went to ballet or trained, basically all you did was ballet, and then if you got an injury, you went to physical therapy. Well, now it's all joined up, and they're doing Pilates, and they're going to the gymnasium, and they're getting physical therapy, and all these things. We're so much more knowledgeable about the body. So, and they'll find that here we have a great physical therapist here, and there's Pilates equipment available to them. So, but yeah.
Do you think that your new title is going to change the way the school works with students, or is it going to see a gradual change in the way ballet is developed here?
No, I would like the emphasis to change, so we can not change, but just to make sure that is a strong emphasis, that these kids not only do ballet and they do their character and they do their modern and jazz and hip hop, but that the contemporary portion of that is equally weighted, not just the dancing part, but in a partnering sense. So when you see a contemporary pas de deux, it's often very different than seeing a classical pas de deux. And so I think all of it will continue to grow harmoniously together, because that's what they are. Ballet and contemporary ballet very much intertwined. So, and I think Jean-Pierre is at the forefront. He always has been at the forefront of that, and that's where he wants to take the program.
And there are multiple companies coming and going here this summer.
Yes.
Do you see that as a challenge, exciting challenge, new opportunities?
Yeah, look, if I was a young student and I saw all these different companies and different dancers coming in, I'd be thrilled. I mean, Alvin Ailey's going to be here. Well, there's some kids here might not have ever been exposed to Alvin Ailey. They might see it and go, oh, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. I thought I wanted to be a ballet dancer, but not really. I want to go and join Alvin Ailey because that looks incredible. And I believe Pittsburgh Ballet is coming at the end of the season, and then I think there's some other companies coming as well. So I think that's a tremendous advantage for some of these students.
And how about for the people at Chautauqua? Do you see this as a challenge, a thrill for the people at Chautauqua?
I hope they're thrilled. I mean, I think so. I think it's nice to be exposed to those different companies. And it's not YouTube, you know. You can get on YouTube and look at this stuff all the time, but there's something about video and dance that is really hard to carry across. I think you have to see dance live. I mean, it's performed live, and it's performed with that idea that once it's performed, you're never going to see it again. It's gone. So it needs that real visceral experience, and I don't think you get that the same way from YouTube. So I think it's really important for the growth of Chautauqua to have these different performers come in. One of the things I'm really proud of and excited about is we have former dancers coming back for an evening in August. And that came through the program 14, 15 years ago. So Brooklyn Mack from Washington Ballet and Jeanette Delgado from Miami City Ballet, and of course Anna and Pete, who were formerly with Charlotte Ballet and went on to Aspen Santa Fe and Joffrey Ballet. So, and they're going to come and perform. So I think that's really quite important, and it shows you how well the program's doing to produce this calibre of talent. I just went down to the AMP this morning to have a look. The thing with the AMP is they have so many performances and the schedule's so tight, so the turnaround for putting down any special sprung floors and things like that, it's pretty hard to do stuff like that. But it looks sensational. I mean, I know there was a lot of back and forth about the whole thing, but I think there's going to be a lot of really wonderful performances there. So yeah, I'm eager to get down and stand on the stage. But just to have an orchestra pit. You know, we used to have the orchestra sit in front of the stage, and if you didn't have a good seat, it's kind of hard to see the performance. So I think that's going to be a huge difference for those CSO nights when we have, if it's Charlotte Ballet or if it's another company, to really have them be seen the way they should be. I think it would be magnificent. Yeah, look, I think it's already positioned as the most unique summer course in the country, no question. Would it be great to start accepting more and more international students? Absolutely. But I think it's, like I said, I think Chautauqua's a unique place, and I think that's the uniqueness of the program. The ballet program, the instruction's fantastic. Jean-Pierre's always going to get high quality instructors here. I mean, you have Patricia McBride here. But I think, like I said before, those two words, I keep coming back to cultural immersion. And some of these kids aren't going to want to go to the opera, and they don't want to go and see a play, they just want to do ballet. But I think in 10 years they could look back and say, oh my gosh, now I get it now, you know. So, yeah, I'd like to see that emphasised, and I would love the kids to get on stage as much as possible. I think that's really invaluable. I'd love to see this. I would love to see the space grow. It would be nice to have a new studio, and I think that's really important for the future of the dance program in Chautauqua. Just to facilitate some of these young men that are coming up. It would be really, what I would love to see is this to be the place where men want to come, all the men want to come for the summer. Because the more men and more partners you have, the more things you can do. But I think there's there's some great male teachers here, and I think it would be really lovely to see those young boys coming in here for the summers. So I'd love to see that end pushed a lot. I think that's it. I think that's important.